russosbrand.com, where the pros are the pros. Bro, I'm one of the guys that literally watched the first season of the Not Ready for Primetime Players. I watched that. I watched SNL when it first came out. They had the Muppets on the first couple of seasons. I mean, I watched all that stuff. I watched that stuff through college. So I'm sitting there, bro, and I'm watching Saturday night. I'm like, this is the season premiere. Let me check this out. So I'm checking out the season premiere bin, and literally 10 minutes in, this is awful. And nothing is funny, and nothing is making me laugh. And I don't know who these people are. None of them look like stars. None of them are over. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, what does this remind me of? And, you know, bro, there's a lot to say with the early Saturday Night Live years and, you know, the glory days of wrestling. And forget about the Attitude Era. Go back to the WrestleMania 1 to 3 era. Go back to that era. Then look at today's wrestling. Look at what we looked at last night. Go back to Belushi and Aykroyd and Chase and Curtin and go look at this week's season premiere. And holy shit, bro. I mean, I don't know if you're talking about bar being lowered or we have just as a society come to accept mediocrity. I don't know exactly what it is, but Ben, there was also a very, very common theme. Very common theme. Bro, when you go back to the glory years of wrestling, when you go back to Hogan's era, when you go back to the Attitude Era, when you go back through the various decades of Saturday Night Live, bro, what were these two entities driven by? Bro, these two entities were driven by characters. They were driven by characters. Saturday Night Live, bro, you can go through the entire history of the great reappearing characters on the show. Bro, there are no more characters on SNL. Like, not one. And I'm watching Raw last night, and I'm like, bro, there's not one character on this show. So I just want to ask both of you guys, like, when you look at wrestling, when you look at SNL that's going on 50 years now, bro, how the hell did we go from A to Z? In the matter of, in the case of SNL, it's 50 years, and, you know, wrestling's been around that long. I want you guys to break down the diminishing product, you know, of wrestling and sketch comedy. Bro, I don't understand, Ben. There are still talented people. There are talented producers. There are talented writers. How do you diminish these cornerstones of American pop culture over the last 5 decades?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack, and there's a lot of answers on a lot of levels like that. So if I go too long, just cut me off, Stevie.
Stevie, keep in mind, the longer he goes, the less we got to talk about the show.
I'll make it quick. No, I saw you tweet that, so I went and watched some of the stuff, and I've been almost over it because I was fortunate, I think, and everyone thinks this about their era, to be in the last days of Chicago as the comedy mecca before woke culture and making that the priority of what goes on the show as opposed to characters. So there was a time where they just said, we want everybody young, and you can't do comedy or wrestling at a high level if you don't have the reps. You might be funny, quick, witty, and sharp, but if you haven't had your heart broken, if you haven't had, your car smashed into, if you haven't lived through all of these life experiences, then you're not going to be able to really bring it on stage. And when you have young performers, they just don't have the life experience. I'm not saying back in the heyday that Bill Murray and all of them didn't, but they were out there cutting their teeth in the comedy clubs and living the lifestyle. Now I've seen Second City and Improv Olympic kill itself in a lot of ways by going, we need to have a diversity in all this. And instead of just being like, who's here, who's hungry, who cares, put them together. Comedy should have no boundaries. Now we don't have characters because of cancel culture and fear for reprisal. You could never get away with Samurai Warrior Jim Belushi. And I watched them like kill those theaters and have their management replaced. But are they the best people for the job? No. And I think kind of in the Kate McKinnon last era of characters that you'll see on SNL, when they went against Trump to weaponize, they just threw it all out the window. It's fine to satirize old white men, senators, or whatever you want to do. You're Mitch McConnell. I think that shit's funny. I think everybody, every race, every age should get smashed on. There's no boundaries. But now we have a nonstop, just like inject these things into the scenes and don't really hit and laugh. You're just kind of watching spectacle, but you want to judge it as like, okay, we're making a gay joke, but don't you dare make a gay joke, because you just have to take this because we're injecting this into every normalcy of every scene, even in our satire. And nobody's doing good impersonations. No one's writing scenes with a solid button on them on the end, or writing a character that could then be taken to a Wayne's World or a Coneheads level movie. All that's out the window. And to be honest with you, is it the fact that a 70-plus-year-old billionaire is still running that show?
That's as opposed point. But Stevie, what's your take on this, bro? Just the diminish of things that were at one time absolutely great entertainment.
We have this show that's been on for 50 years, that's been doing nothing over the past, especially since Trump got in the office, been bleeding ratings. They never even come out with any kind of ratings. They have an agenda each and every week. The jokes don't have punchlines because they aren't jokes. They're messages. They're not jokes with punchlines. It's all messaging. If it's allowed to exist to this extent and people aren't supporting it, therefore, who knows what the advertising is? It's got to be to some degree government, if not deep state, subsidized. This is just feels like a V for Vendetta type of talk show type thing, like the arm of the Ministry of Information type thing. That's what we're watching. If it can't survive on its merits, then who's footing the bill to keep it on the air?